Nepal, or the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal, is a landlocked country in South Asia. It is located in the pristine Himalayas and also includes parts of the Indo-Gangetic Plain. It borders Tibet in the north, India to the southeast and west, while it narrowly separated from Bangladesh by the Siliguri corridor and from Bhutan by the Indian state of Sikkim. Nepal has diverse geography including fertile plains, subalpine forested hills, 8 of the world's 10 tallest mountains, including Mount Everest, the highest point on earth. Kathmandu is the capital of Nepal and the largest city. Nepal is a multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-religious and multicultural state with Nepali as the official language. The name Nepal is first recorded from the text of the Vedic period, the era in ancient Nepal when Hinduism was founded, the predominant religion of the country. In the middle of the first millennium, Gautam Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, was born in Lumbini in southern Nepal. Parts of northern Nepal were intertwined with the culture of Tibet. The centrally located Kathmandu Valley is intertwined with in the culture of the Indo-Aryans and was a seat of the prosperous newer confederacy known as the Nepal Mandala. The Himalayan branch of the ancient Silk Road was dominated by the valley's traders. The cosmopolitan region developed distinct traditional art and architecture. By the 18th century, the Gorkha kingdom achieved the unification of Nepal. The Shah dynasty established the Kingdom of Nepal and later formed an alliance with the British Empire under its Rana dynasty of premiers. The country was never colonized but served as a buffer state between Imperial China and British India. Parliamentary democracy was introduced in 1951 but was twice suspended by Nepali monarch in 1960 and 2005. The Nepali civil war in the 1990s and early 2000s resulted in the establishment of a secular republic in 2008, ending the world's largest Hindu monarchy. The Constitution of Nepal was adopted in 2015 and affirms the country as a secular federal parliamentary republic divided into 7 provinces. Nepal was admitted to the United Nations in 1955 and friendship treaties were signed with India in 1950 and China in 1960. Nepal hosts the permanent secretary of the South Asian Association for the Regional Cooperation (SAARC), of which it is the founding member. Nepal is also a member of the Non-Aligned Movement and the Bay of Bengal Initiative. The Nepalese armed forces are the 5th largest in South Asia and are notable for their Gurkha history, particularly during the World Wars, has been a significant contributor to the United Nations peacekeeping forces. Nepal is roughly trapezoidal in shape, about 800 kilometers long and 200 kilometers wide, with an area of 147,516 square kilometers. Nepal's defining geological process began 75 million years ago when the Indian plate, then part of the southern supercontinent Gondwana, became a northeastern drift caused by sea floor spreading to its southwest and later south and southeast. Simultaneously, the vast Tethys oceanic crust to its northeast began to subduct under the Eurasian plate. These dual processes, driven by the convection in the Earth's mantle, both created the Indian Ocean and caused the Indian subcontinental crust eventually to underthrust Eurasia and to uplift the Great Himalayas, the world's youngest fold mountains. The rising barriers blocked the paths of rivers, creating large lakes which only broke through as late as 100,000 years ago, creating fertile valleys in middle hills like the Kathmandu Valley. In the western regions, rivers which were too strong to be hampered cut some of the world's deepest gorges. Immediately south of the emergent Himalayas, plate movement created a vast trough and rapidly filled with river-borne sediment which now constitutes the vast Indo-Gangetic Plain. Nepal lies almost completely within this collision zone, occupying the central sector of the Himalayan arc, nearly 1/3 of the 2,400 kilometers long Himalayas, with a small strip of southernmost Nepal stretching into the Indo-Gangetic Plain and 2 districts in northwest stretching up to the Tibetan Plateau. Nepal is divided into 3 principal physiogeographic belts known as the Himal, Pahad and the Terai. Himal is the mountain region containing snow and situated in the Great Himalayan Range. It makes up the northern part of the Nepal. It contains the highest elevation of the world, most respectfully the Mount Everest on the border with China. 7 of the other world's 8,000ers are also in Nepal, located on its border with Tibet. Pahad is the mountain region that does not generally contain snow. The lower Himalayan range, reaching 1500 to 3000 meters, is the southern limit of the region, with subtropical river valleys and hills alternating to the north of the range. Population density is very high in valleys, but notably less above 2000 meters and very low above 2500 meters, where snow occasionally falls in winter. The southern lowland plains of the Terai bordering India are a part of the northern rim of the vast Indo-Gangetic Plain. Terai is a lowland region containing some hill ranges. The plains were formed and are fed by three major Himalayan rivers, the Koshi, Narayani and Karnali, as well as smaller rivers rising below the permanent snow line. This region has subtropical to tropical climate. The outermost range of the foothills, called the Sivalik Hills or the Chulia Range, cresting at 700 to 1000 meters, marks the limits of the Gangetic Plain. Nepal is an earthquake-prone zone, and periodic earthquakes are experienced that have devastating consequences in the past. Erosion of the Himalayas is a very important source of the sediment which flows to the Indian Ocean. Saptakoshi in particularly carries a huge amount of silt out of Nepal, but sees extreme drop in the gradient in Bihar, causing severe floods, course changes, and is therefore known as the sorrow of Bihar. Nepal has 5 climatic zones, broadly corresponding to the altitudes. Nepal contains a disproportionately large diversity of plants and animals relative to the size. In its entirety, the western portion of the eastern Himalayan biodiversity hotspot with notable biocultural diversity. The dramatic differences in elevation found in Nepal result in a variety of biomes. The eastern half of Nepal is rich in biodiversity as it receives more rain compared to the western part, where Arctic desert type conditions are more common at the higher elevation. Nepal is a habitat of around 4% of all mammalian species, 8.9% of the bird species, 1% of reptile, 2.5% of amphibian, around 2% of fish, 3.7% of the butterfly, 0.5% of moth, and 0.4% of the global spider species. In its 35 recognized forest types and 118 ecosystems, Nepal harbors 2% of the global flowering plant species, 3% pteridophytes, and 6% of the bryophytes. The forest cover is over 59,000 square kilometers, representing 40% of the country's total land area, with an additional 4.38% of scrubland, for a total forested area of 44.74%, an increase of 5% since the turn of millennium. The Terai savanna and grassland ecoregions contain some of the world's tallest grasses, as well as sal forests, tropical evergreen forests, and tropical riverine deciduous forests. In the lower hills, tropical and temperate deciduous mixed forests containing mostly sal, chilwen, and katus, as well as tropical pine forests dominated by chir pine. The middle hills are dominated by oak rhododendron. Subalpine coniferous forests are dominated by oak, eastern Himalayan fir, Himalayan pine, and Himalayan hemlock. Rhododendron is common as well. Among notable trees, astringent Azadirachta indica or neem, which is widely used in traditional herbal medicine, and luxurious Ficus religiosa or peepal, is displayed on the ancient hills of Mohenjo-daro, and under which Gautam Buddha is recorded in the Pali Canon to have sought enlightenment. Most subtropical evergreen broadleaf forest of the lower Himalayan region is descended from the Tethyan terraced flora. Nepal contains 107 IUCN designated threatened species. 88 of them are animal, 18 plants, and 1 species of fungi or protist group. These also include endangered Bengal tiger, red panda, Asiatic elephant, Himalayan musk deer, wild water buffalo, and the South Asian river dolphin, as well as critically endangered gharial, the Bengal florican, and the white-rumped vulture, which has become nearly extinct by having ingested the carrion infested with diclofenac. The pervasive and ecologically devastating human encroachment of recent decades has critically endangered Nepali wildlife. In response, the system of national parks and protected areas were first established in 1973 with the enactment of National Parks and Wildlife Conservation Act of 1973. The Community Forest Program, which since 1/3 of the country's population directly participate in managing 1/4 of the total forested area, has helped the local economies while reducing human wildlife conflict. The breeding programs of wildlife, coupled with community-assisted military patrols and a crackdown on poaching and smuggling, has seen a poaching of critically endangered tigers, elephants, as well as vulnerable rhinos, among others, go down to effectively zero, and their number henceforth have steadily increased. Nepal has 10 national parks, 3 wildlife reserves, 1 hunting reserve, 3 conservation areas, and 11 buffer areas. 10 wetlands under Nepal are designated as Ramsar under Ramsar Convention. Shoykot Kumar Basu, Bureau Report, Kalinga Chronicle TV.